Good morning, and thank you for joining us. We are gathered on Treaty 6 territory and acknowledge the Métis people who share a deep connection with this land. I'm Rhiannon Hoyle, the Alberta NDP MLA for Edmonton South, and I'm joined here today by my colleagues Jasvier Deol, Alberta NDP critic for infrastructure, Dr. Luann Metz, Alberta NDP health critic, and the Alberta NDP leader, Rachel Notley. It's been almost 7 years ago that I stood on this very area with Alberta Premier Rachel Notley when she announced a new state-of-the-art hospital would be built right here in South Edmonton. She made a commitment to Albertans to get shovels in the ground by 2020 and have the South Edmonton Hospital open by 2026, adding a much-needed 491 beds to the Edmonton region. As president of Heritage Point Community League, I was proud to be a part of an important announcement, not only for our community, but for the entire city and surrounding neighbors. But after 5 years under a UCP government, all the residents of South Edmonton have an empty field. After forming government in 2019, the UCP said opening of the new hospital would be delayed until 2030. Danielle Smith ran in the last election on the promise of building this hospital. And this past July, her government said, quote, remains committed to the South Edmonton Hospital project, end quote. And at the end of November, in question period, Health Minister Adriana Lagrange said, quote, our government is fully committed to building a new hospital in South Edmonton, end quote. But just 2 weeks ago, the health minister announced that the government was shelving plans for this vital project. After repeatedly promising to support the first new hospital in Edmonton since 1988, the UCP government has chosen instead to callously put Albertans' lives at risk, and they have halted this project. Alberta's population has doubled since 1988, and South Edmonton has seen some of the fastest population growth in the country. The nearest hospital from here is the Grey Nuns Hospital, and it's full. Our schools are filled to capacity. But just like the much-needed hospital, the UCP refuses to build new schools in our growing community. This empty field, in the heart of my riding, in a community that I have called home for nearly 20 years, clearly illustrates the failures and broken promises of Danielle Smith and her UCP government. I would now like to invite Rachel Notley to the mic.
Thank you so much, Rhiannon, for your unwavering support and advocacy for your community. And thank you, Jasvier and Luann, for your tireless efforts to support this project and your advocacy for all Albertans when it comes to getting them the health care that they need, when and where they need it. So to review, the Edmonton Health Zone is short 500 hospital beds right now, and will be over 1,500 beds short by 2027. Meanwhile, the UCP has wasted $66 million for the sole purpose of stringing Albertans along on a hospital they clearly never planned to build. And here is where we are as a result: a great big empty field. And let me also be clear that, as usual, it is necessary for me to come before you today to clear up some of the lies that the Premier has told you. First of all, there is nothing in her plan to suggest that a new Stollery Hospital will be any more of a reality than the one right here. As I just said, this government, this UCP government, is comfortable spending $66 million to pretend they are building a hospital. That's what they've done over the last 4 years. Meanwhile, in the current budget, they've only dedicated $20 million for the Stollery. Bottom line is, we've seen this story before. We shouldn't have bought it last time, and we're not going to buy it this time. Heck, the health minister doesn't even think there's going to be a Stollery because she can't begin to tell us what the timeline is for when that will be built. So friends, this premier has lied. She lied to Albertans when she said she was committed to a South Edmonton hospital. She lied during the election when she campaigned on it. And now she's lying to Albertans when she claims her pretend Stollery will add 236 hospital beds to Edmonton. And this is because children's beds and adult beds are not the same thing. And the premier knows that, even as she tries to claim they are. The fact of the matter is there's about a 4-to-1 ratio between the two. So even if there were a Stollery hospital, a new Stollery hospital, it would only, at best, open up a new 80 beds for adults around Edmonton. So, we're here to tell you this premier is just fine with us here in Edmonton being short between 500 and 1,500 hospital beds here in the city of Edmonton over the next 3 years at a minimum. So why? Why would the premier allow that to happen? Why would they plan for that? Well, bottom line is because this premier does not support public health care, because her goal is private health care. It's truly heartbreaking to be standing in this empty field knowing that had the UCP government kept their promises, we would actually be standing in front of a fully active construction site on our way to opening the first new hospital in Edmonton in a generation. But long wait times at emergency rooms and hallway medicine are just part of this UCP government's plan to sabotage public health care here in Alberta. For instance, look at what's happening in Airdrie, where planned renovations of the city's main health centre were put on hold last month. Why? Because the UCP wants to consider a proposal to privatize it using a privately delivered service model, or a P3. And last week, Albertans learned about a new privatization scheme by the UCP with the announcement that the Red Deer Regional Hospital redevelopment will also be done with a P3. We know that P3 delivery models for healthcare and schools, where we've seen them already, do not work. A P3, public-private partnership, it means the public pays, you and I, we pay for it, but we never operate it. And we don't own it until it's falling apart and at the end of its life. Frankly, the only value to P3 construction models is to keep the capital costs off the government books so they can claim they're balancing the budget. But they're not. They're just creating a bigger debt somewhere else where Albertans, taxpayers, can't see it. And with that, I'd like to invite Dr. Metz to say a few words.
Thank you, Rachel. Airdrie, Red Deer, and the pause on what should be a new hospital right here in South Edmonton are clear indications that this UCP government will continue its ideological push to privatize our healthcare system. This government's failure to support healthcare staff who continue to endure unsustainable working conditions, and the UCP's refusal to build critical infrastructure in Alberta's growing communities is a clear political agenda. Their intention is clear: destroy the public healthcare system, and they are happy to ignore the casualties along the way. But let me be clear, privatization simply does not work. From the delivery of our healthcare to the buildings that it happens in, the only ones who think differently are those who stand to make a profit. For example, the government's attempt to privatize lab services was not only a costly mistake financially, but the health of thousands of Albertans was jeopardized by Dynalife's failure to deliver timely services. And privately delivered surgeries have not brought down wait lists for those who are in agony waiting for care. I am calling on the UCP government to do what's best for the health of Albertans and to support public health care in this province. Get shovels in the ground for a new hospital in South Edmonton. Commit to rejecting public-private partnerships and support the public health care that all Albertans deserve. Thank you, and we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Just a reminder, if you're on Zoom, it's the raise hand function. If you're on the phone, it's *9 to get into the question queue. We'll start with questions in person.
Good morning. Sean from the Edmonton Journal. Can someone just tell me the status of this piece of land now? Is it still? It's been cleared and fenced. Is there plans for this piece of land? Is anyone aware of?
I kind of.
Okay, you bet. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now, so